Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Courage to Change, a recovery podcast. My name is Ashley Loeb Blassingame, and I am your host. Today, we have my friend Mike McAllister. Mike is a California native living in San Clemente, California, with his wife and two beautiful daughters. He has multiple ASE and Ford Master certifications, as well as technical school certificates in automotive and heavy equipment mechanics. Mike believes that the only social media he needs is email. However, if you want to connect with him, you can sometimes find him on his wife's Instagram feed, which can be found with the handle @ChasingMcAllisters. He has been sober and in recovery for over 10 years. Mike is a committed member of a 12-step recovery group. His experiences are his only and not representative of the group as a whole. I had so much fun recording this episode with Mike. He did an incredible job. Mike is Emily McAllister's husband, and she has been one of our guests. An update is that the teacher that Mike talks about wanting to make amends to, he actually did call and make amends to this woman after the episode and was inspired by our conversation to do so. He says that he feels like he has a huge weight lifted off of his shoulders. This was so exciting for me, and I'm just so proud of Mike, and what a wonderful thing to have happen as a result of telling your story. So anyway, I hope you all enjoy this wonderful episode. Episode 39, let's do this. Mike, welcome to the podcast booth. You are officially our tallest guest, 6'3".
6'3", yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to get some bigger chairs in here. So I want to start by saying that you are married to my friend, Emily McAllister.
Yes, correct.
And she was episode 7 of season 1. And so that's pretty exciting. And that I actually met you on the day that you met Emily.
Yes.
It was an interesting.
Definitely.
Not our finest ever.
Wild night, yes.
Yeah. So and you've been sober how long?
A little over 10 years. I got sober November 18th, 2009. So when I took 10 years, it was like, I took it 7, 8, 9. I'm sober, right? It's not like my first or my second. But there was a couple years ago where it had been longer than I realized I hadn't been arrested in 10 years, where I was like kind of emotional about it. I was like it meant more to me that I managed to stay out of jail for longer than 10 years than almost being sober. Like when I was staying sober, it was like, that's just kind of what we do.
Yeah,
you know?
Right. But the fact that you had not been incarcerated for 10 years was like this huge.
It was a big deal to me.
Yeah.
I think I might have even called someone and was like, dude, I haven't been arrested in 10 years.
But hopefully they were in program too.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone else would be like, yeah, good job. I haven't been arrested ever.
Right, yeah. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
We get like these kudos for doing what everyone else is supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up in Orange County?
No, so I grew up in the high desert. I grew up in a small town. At the time, it was a very small town called Hesperia.
Hesperia.
Yeah.
Great tattoo shop there.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, it was just a little dirt town. There was Main Street, and there was one stop sign on Main Street.
Oh wow.
It was very undeveloped. I remember like 4th grade, there was like Taco Bell came to town, and people were like
lining up.
Yeah.
Like the iPhone.
Yeah, like I'd never heard of it, but I was like, what's the big deal?
Nacho Bel Grande's like iPhone 10.
Yeah.
Hesperia.
Yeah. So it's pretty rural, just a small blue collar town.
And that was okay. So you and I are same age. So you were 33. So then since then it's no longer a small town. Is that?
No, I mean during like the housing boom in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It just exploded.
Okay.
And then along with you started seeing prior to this there was street lights. It grew as a city.
Yeah. What's it like growing up in a small town? What did your parents do in that town?
So I enjoyed it. It was all I knew. I would love to go back to a small town. My dad was a painter. Painted houses. And then my mom, as a kid, she ran a daycare out of her house while she went to, she was a full-time nursing student as well.
Oh, wow.
So, like, she ran the business all day and went to school all night.
And do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother who's 2.5 years younger than me. And then I have a sister I have a half sister who I think she's about 19 and a half, 20 years younger than me.
Okay. And that's on mom or dad's side?
On my mom's
side. Okay. Yeah. And does your mom live nearby? Are you close?
So my mom's now in Orange County.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And so what was it like growing up? So it sounds like your mom was very busy.
Yes.
And there were a lot of kids in the house, I take it?
Yeah, 10 kids, 10, 12 kids probably every day.
How did that feel? Like, oh, my mom's taking care of all these other kids.
It was crazy. So I grew up in an alcoholic home, right?
What does that mean?
So my dad was an alcoholic.
Okay.
My dad was alcoholic. My grandfather was an alcoholic. I have an aunt and uncle who both died of alcoholism. So it's a big deal in my family.
Yeah.
And my grandpa was, when he died, he had 40 years sober. So my whole life, my grandpa was sober, right? I knew what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I just always known about Alcoholics Anonymous.
And did he live nearby?
No, my grandfather lived in Laverne.
Okay, how far is that?
From where I grew up, an hour drive, 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then my dad, my entire childhood was in and out of the program.
Okay.
So me and my dad, I'm the typical, like what the book talks about, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? So my dad would get sober, life would be good, life was kind of stable, But it was a religious home. I grew up in a Christian house. So we would go to church every Sunday, there was like morals. I was instilled, there was morals instilled in. But then when he would get loaded, it was a complete opposite. It was extremely violent. I was disciplined like severely, with the belt. I mean, when he was sober, I would still get the belt, right? But I knew when he was drinking because of the beatings I would get,
Did everyone in your house get the belt?
No. My brother was treated like the baby. And I don't know if this was like on purpose or whatever, but, he was the baby.
Were you the only one that got the belt?
I paid the price. He got hit a couple times, but it wasn't like...
And so 2 questions on that. Like, what did you think did you think that was the norm? Like, yeah, this is the norm. Like, other people in your community, most kids got hit with the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of my friends all got the belt.
Okay. And then what do you think about that now?
If it was a good thing for me or if it had a negative effect. I definitely responded very well to the belt.
Okay.
Like if I knew I was going to do something I wasn't supposed to do, I had to be willing to get the belt,
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm just like playing in my head, they've done all this research that the most violent place in America is in the home.
Yeah.
And that children who have had corporal punishment, that they tend to grow up to be more violent, maybe even not, more being just more, not necessarily being enough to be a problem, but just more than other people. And so I was just curious, like you have 2 little girls, like would you?
Oh, no, I would never. That's something so that's one of the good things about like being sober and being like able to break that. So you responded well to it, but it's not something you think is how you would. No, not in my house. Yeah. And what I did learn from that was how effective physical violence is.
Yeah.
Whereas like people would be like, I remember the teachers being like, well, let's talk this out. And I'm like, let me just punch the kid in the mouth.
Right. Right. So like, so that's it. That's true. That's an interesting thing. I think I thought that too.
Yeah.
I think I thought that too, where there was a lot of like talking, and I knew that if I just acted violently that people would respond, whether that's aggression back, you'd get some kind of response, right? Yeah. So then were you unwilling to use, and like, were you like, okay, violence is the way to communicate in the world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like and when I did use it as a kid, it worked.
Right. I mean, it is.
It's a highly effective tool for a young kid.
And you were so tell me about how, because you're an enormous human being.
Yeah.
Tell me about your size when you were little.
I've always been bigger.
Okay, so like not only was violence an effective tool, but you were physically able to intimidate.
Yeah, by like junior high, I was probably 6 foot, 180, and by high school, I was 200 pounds, 6'2".
Jesus. Okay, so then, Dad, how often do you think that Dad got sober? Like what were the increments of time? Like how long did stability last for?
So, my parents were married 11 years. They got divorced when I was 11, but during that 11 years, he did go like 5 years. He made it like 5 years. So there was like a period where
straight.
Yeah, where like life, that was like finally like there was still, he's an alcoholic, so the behavior is a little different than the average human being, but it was still like stability. You know what I mean? Like,
did he go to meetings?
Yeah, he was huge in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
And so I was like the little kid at the meetings, right? And that was like how I interpreted it. Now, Orange County looks a little different AA-wise. Where I grew up, there was a lot of like very low bottom, straight out of prison, guys just completely covered in tattoos. Yeah. Just big, burly looking guys, right? And so that's what I equated, like, for sure. This is what an alcoholic is.
This is what they look like.
And my grandpa would like detox guys in the garage on giving them vodka. So it's like, okay, well, that's what an alcoholic is, right? That I could recite the Serenity Prayer as a kid, and I was like, cool, I know what it's all about.
What did you think about can you go back and think, like, what did you think about the program? Were you like, this is good, this is bad, this is weird, or just, do you think you ever thought about it?
I thought, I actually thought being around those guys, like I said, they were big, burly guys. Yeah. Like I thought it was really cool. Yeah. And I knew my dad's behavior and my parents' relationship was better when he was going to meetings, going to doing AA.
So he gets, what was the period of time that he was sober, those 5?
So he got loaded right after my parents got divorced. So from
so at 11.
Yeah. So what would that be, from like 7, 8 years old to 11?
So when that happened, so your parents get divorced, how did you feel about that?
I felt responsible for it.
Oh, okay.
Like I internalized, I remember, like, as they were telling us, me and my brother, I remember crying and saying, no, I'll behave, I'll be different. And I had like a lot of my own stuff going on. I was a super angry kid. We just, I fought a lot because of, I don't know, just the stuff boys do, I guess, when you're that age. And I was already getting in trouble, and like I was already stealing cigarettes from my grandma.
Right, you had your first drink at what, 8?
8, yeah, 2nd grade.
So in 2nd grade, how did that go down?
So like I knew how Dad acted when he drank. Right. Right. I knew how.
Was he ever happy, or was he always angry? Like, did you have any like? Oh,
no, he was happy, but there was like a light switch that would snap.
Totally.
Yes, it was like you would do something wrong and it would go
south,
extreme,
real fast. Yeah.
And so while my mom was in nursing school, she would have like these, margarita parties at night with the other students.
Studying and whatever.
Yeah. And I saw how they behaved for alcohol, and then I saw like Cheers was on TV, it was Married with Children. Right. Like that was like my other exposure to alcohol. Right. So, and I was always told no, you can't have any. And I was like, well, this is kind of BS. Right. And so I got into, the only drink I, for whatever reason, knew how to make was a screwdriver. And I had a friend over, and I poured heavy on the vodka, right? Just enough orange juice so it would turn orange. Right. And I started drinking it, and he took a couple sips of it and didn't want any. And I'm like, we have to drink this. Like,
I made it. We can't waste it.
Right? Yeah. That's how I was later in life. I'm not throwing it away. Yeah. But no, at that time, I'm like, if we get caught, like, for one, I'm going to catch a huge ass whooping.
Right. Like, make it worth it kind of deal?
Yeah, let's get this in. But during that, so I probably drank like a half pint of vodka, Not enough to, like, I definitely got drunk from it. Yeah. It was enough for me to remember, like, the experience and how I felt when I drank it, that my, like you hear, I was born with, my skin was too tight. Mm-hmm. It loosened up, and I just didn't care. Like, I just didn't care about how I felt.
Something that I experienced was, and a lot of people talk about, is like, I didn't know how anxious I was until I wasn't. Like, I didn't know how much I needed that drink until I had it. Yeah. Right. Because I had never experienced the other side of relaxation, of like, my skin not being too tight. Yeah. And like, did you have that experience, or did you kind of know that you were uncomfortable? No. Well, what I knew is I felt I wasn't angry. Right. I wasn't like, I didn't feel wound up like a pressure cooker as a kid, and I was like, I'm like, so this is what they've been hiding from me. I'm going to do this the rest of my life, and I didn't even after that, I couldn't understand how people didn't do it every day. Yeah. Like it just didn't make sense to me. Right. Do you remember the first time that you were angry? Like, can you recall the first time you're like, I'm angry? Like as a young child? Yeah. Oh, all the time. Like, I don't remember even be able to identify that was a feeling. Yeah. But yeah, I would get, I'd get in trouble, and I would just like rage, and then I would go in the bedroom, and here's should have been a red flag, right? I would get locked up. Go to my bedroom,
and I would make myself hyperventilate, and I would hold my breath until I'd pass out. And then I would come to, and I would just be like, I would feel like that tingling sensation.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is amazing, and that's how I figured out how to calm myself down.
Wow. How old were you?
As a kid, like
little.
Yeah, kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah. So I mean, you really were born with. I mean, that just ism just embedded.
Yeah.
Why did you think that your parents' divorce was your fault?
I was getting in a lot of trouble at school. They would ask me to do reports, or they would ask me to do this, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I just don't care. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that was just like a go-to. I didn't know any other way to feel except I'm responsible.
I'm responsible.
Yeah.
And so they split up. And how do you find out that dad has relapsed?
So shortly after my parents divorced, my dad's mom died. Mm. And I mean, he's not the alcoholic who's able to hide it.
Right.
It's like by day 2, he's drinking.
Yeah.
Just his, the way he talks, his attitude.
Was it a conversation? Like, did your mom say, like, Dad's drinking again, or like?
No, I mean, he wasn't in the house.
But like, did anyone mention it? Because he had 5 years of sobriety.
Yeah.
So for that to end, did anyone bring that up, or you just noticed it and that was new normal?
Yeah. I just knew Dad's drinking again.
Dad's drinking again. That's it.
Yeah.
And how did that affect your drinking?
So I was 11. And from my first drink, I got a hold of anything that could make me feel different, any chance I had, whether it be like going through my friend's parents' medicine cabinets, and just finding the bottle that said, do not operate heavy equipment. Oh. I was like, cool, that's the one I want. I don't know what it is, but I want that one.
Do not mix with alcohol means
perfect.
Mix with alcohol immediately.
Yeah, and take more than what the bottle says.
Yes.
So
there's a commercial for a drug called Lyrica, and pharmaceutical drug. And every time I watch it on TV, and it's like, do not mix with alcohol, and my brain goes, this has got to be great with alcohol. Like it's we just like hone in on that, like eagle
and I'm going to crush it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want it now. I don't want to wait 20 minutes for it.
No, there's no waiting.
No.
Waiting is really, really unacceptable.
Yeah.
So what age were you going through medicine cabinets?
Oh, same, probably 9, 10, 11. That when I figured out, like, if I took too much medicine or if I drank too much NyQuil or whatever it may be, I would have an effect. And so by that time, it was like an experiment. Like,
did your parents see this? I mean, was your mom like, oh boy?
No, there was another time I got into the alcohol cabinet and I ended up passed out in the hallway, and I got in trouble for it. And they poured out, my mom poured out all the alcohol. Yeah. Which was like, bummer, right?
Right, but definitely not a deterrent.
No, but like that was it.
Okay.
My consequences were like yard work,
Right.
Yeah, I was mowing the lawn. We lived on almost an acre. It was like, hey, go weed the yard.
Right. So you were going through medicine, and then how did that progress?
I think once my dad was out of the house, it was like full on, I'm going to do whatever I want. By that time, I was almost the size of my mom, know? And I'm like, well, you're not going to stop me. And no other man is coming into my house and going to try to discipline me. Like, that's not happening.
Right. Did it?
No.
Yeah.
No. Any guy who came around, like, I was a jerk kid.
Yeah. Yeah, they were like, yeah, no, what's that?
I'm not getting involved with this lady.
Yeah.
And I want to say by like 12, I actually found a big bag of weed at my dad's house, and I knew what it was, and I didn't know how to smoke. I didn't know anything about it, but for some reason I knew what it was. Right. Okay. And I pinched a lot of it. I didn't know how much I needed, and took it to a couple friends, and we rolled it up and smoked it. Yeah. And so there was like another vice for me. I loved smoking weed. Right.
And that just like increased, it was like, this is just a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah. So then by like junior high, I'd gotten in a fight on the school bus in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And my junior high was like 4.5, 5 miles away. And I got on the bus, and there was 2 other kids, and this was like Pokemon cards, right? Mm-hmm. And I told these kids, I said something like, you guys are lames, something probably a little bit more extreme, but I said something. Right. And while at my stop, it was time to get off, and this other kid kicked me or punched me, came at me over the side of my head, right?
The lame kid did?
Yeah, the lame kid did.
Wow.
And like I said, 7th grade, I was like, 6 foot tall. I was a big kid. Yeah. I pulverized this kid. Yeah. And so I was kicked off the bus. I had to go to court. They tried to, and thank God this was like the time when they put cameras on buses. So I ended up getting kicked off the bus. We both had to go to court. He didn't get kicked off the bus. And then we both got charged with mutual combat. So
mutual combat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was probably, what would I be, 13 at the time. So then I had to get to school every day. And so there was a Vons about a block and a half away from me. And I would go there every morning, and if I was out.
Yeah.
I would go there whenever I needed to, and I would steal a bottle of alcohol, and I would walk then there was a mobile where you could get a big drink, and I would just fill it up, and I would drink every day to school, where I had riding my bike or walking, and I was able at that time, I was able to like maintain, right? I was able to catch, like, get right to that like sloppy, where I was still kind of like people wouldn't know, and stay that way all day, and it was an everyday thing for me by that time. And
did other people know?
Yeah, my friends did.
Yeah,
but they weren't even like.
Were they doing the same thing?
They would. I mean, we would like on the weekends or whatever.
Yeah,
Friday,
but they weren't like daily drinkers.
Oh no. Yeah. And when you're that age, it's kind of like it was a joke. They thought it was funny. They're like, oh, he's drinking.
Oh yeah. It's funny. Yeah. It is funny when you're that age.
Yeah.
Because it seems so ridiculous.
Yeah. And
so, how did things progress from there? Did anything happen as a result other than like mutual combat?
No. I'd been busted by my mom a few times.
Yeah.
It was just like my attitude by that time was, you're not going to do anything to me. I'm going to do it anyway.
Right. Right. That was very similar to how I was.
Yeah. So by the end of my 7th grade or into 8th grade year, and during this whole time, like as a kid, I had excelled in sports, right? I would always been.
So you were still involved in.
Yeah. And I think I got that like sense of approval from sports.
Yeah. What did you play?
Everything. I played soccer, I played football, I played baseball, and the like the local sheriffs were like my Pop Warner football coaches. So there was always like this, I was always tied to, they knew who I was from a very young age, and I sought that approval. And so by that time, I was still partying, but I was also still kind of like participating in life,
Yeah.
And then towards the end of my 8th grade year, so I grew up riding dirt bikes, grew up around horses, and I had just sold one of my other dirt bikes. And my mom was like, hey, I know you've been going through like hard time. There's somebody at my work is selling another dirt bike. They're down in Paris, California. Mm-hmm. Let's go take a look at it, right? And if you like it, I'll buy it for you. And I was like, okay, let's go do this.
Yeah, right.
So this was like 3 or 4 days before the end of school, and we went down
in 8th grade.
Yeah. And I didn't think anything like, hey, why are we going down here on a week school day?
Right. We're not exactly like, you tell us something we want, we don't see obstacles.
No.
Yeah.
So we get down to like this ranch in Paris, and she goes, oh yeah, it's in like it's like a ranch, So we get down to like this ranch, and my now stepdad is in the car, and we pull up. And they go, all right, let's go find it, let's go get it. And so I get out, and 3 men, like big guys, approach me. And this one guy, his name was Pastor Jerry, and he's like, hi, I'm so-and-so. You're going to our Mexico facility for 2 months for troubled youth. And during this interaction, like basically there was a bag in the trunk. My stepdad got out, put it on the ground. My parents got in the car, and they drove away. And they were like, yeah, you're coming with us. And
what went through your mind?
Well, to run.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a big open space. You're not going anywhere. Right. There's 3 guys who are way bigger. Mm-hmm. This is the type of place that's run by people straight out of prison. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they put me in this van, and it was like a old Econoline van, white van. It had the sliding door on the one side. Mm-hmm. The 2 guys got in the front, and then they put me. So there's the middle row. They put me all the way in against the other wall. The other guy sat next to me. Closed the door, and there was I remember there was a white coil of rope on the ground. And they said, if you try to move, you try to get out of here, we're going to tie you up. And so I knew, I was like, well, this is it, right?
Yeah.
Dad's out of my life. My mom just took off. Like, I'm flying solo. You know, this is okay.
It is this one of the scariest feelings. And like, I remember like 2 big guys coming in to get me, and then there was one woman, and like quickly thinking like, what are my exit options? Like, what are my options? Right? Like, how do I get it? Like, and then you get to a point where you're like, there's no way out of this. Like, I have to wait. Like, I have to let them take me before I can even figure anything out. But it is
your situation, like, I think I knew about this happening to kids.
Yeah.
So like I knew what was happening when it happened. Like I was like, oh, I'm being taken to one of those places in Utah. Like I knew what was happening, but you probably didn't know a lot of people this was happening to, right?
No.
Right. So like so you have no idea. You're like, I don't know I don't know where I'm going. And you're going to Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're terrified.
I'm being kidnapped right now.
Yeah.
And so we went across the border. We got to this town. It's called like El Zorrillo or Zorrillo. It's down by Rosarito in Ensenada. And then you pull off on this dirt road, and it's another like 10 miles down to the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And pull up to this farm ranch looking place, and it's got 3 like individual houses on it. And there's no windows. There's no doors on any of the places. There's no running water, no electricity, no gas, nothing. There's no amenities. You're basically camping under a roof. And it was like it was run by Calvary Chapel, and this place, as you're pulling up, you see this huge sign that says "U Turn for Christ," right? And they were basically like, "Hey, this is where you're going to stay," and it's a place where they try to break you.
Yeah, yeah, that's where I went to.
There's like severely, very like labor intensive work, and then they take your shoes at night.
Yep.
They shaved everybody's head so you stand out.
Did they They didn't shave my head. Did they make you count in the bathroom, or you only had certain amount of minutes and
No, it wasn't like that. There was really nowhere to go, but
right. So they didn't.
Yeah, and I didn't even. It occurred to me after I left that place. Obviously they took our shoes at night because they didn't want anyone.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why would they take our belts? And they didn't want anyone hanging themselves.
Right.
There was no running water in the place.
So how does that work with no running water? I mean, I understand that people live like that, but
so there was they would get a delivery of potable water, that you would have to boil. But for baths and stuff, for bathing, there was a well on the property that you literally lowered a bucket into, and there would be times where there would be dead mice floating in there, and you'd have to go in there, you'd have to lower your bucket in and then put it on a fire, warm it up, and that's how you bathe. And
then what about going to the bathroom?
There was an outhouse.
And how many kids were there? And were they all boys?
All boys. I was the youngest there. So I was 14 at the time. And majority of them were 16, 17.
Yeah. And were they all from SoCal or?
All over. All over. I really think this is one of those places they put a really good webpage up.
Yeah.
And they said, we're going to save your kid. And my mom got into it. She was like, this is what my kid needs. They're a religious-based organization.
Right.
This would be awesome for my son.
Right. They're camping. They're learning skills.
That's what they portrayed as.
Right. And so you show up, and what did the other kids tell you? Have people really only been there 2 months? What's the...
No, there was kids who were there for months. Were I'm not leaving here until I'm 18. Their parents would just keep sending checks. And they're like, yeah, just keep my kid. We don't want him back anymore. And it was just, in all fairness, these kids were doing all the same things I was doing. And then I definitely learned how to do more things while I was there. There was hey, have you ever learned how to huff this or huff that? I'm like, no, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
But it was another way of getting high.
Were they kind to you?
Yeah. I never gotten into as far as the kids or the people running the place.
The kids.
Oh yeah. I never gotten into altercations with any of them.
Yeah. There was sort of the place that I went, which was not rustic, but they pit us against each other.
Yeah.
And so if you would move up and get more privileges if you outed someone for doing something.
Oh, right.
And so I went to a couple different places, and some it was there was this we're going through this together, this bond of where the fuck are we?
Yeah.
And then at the other place it was they made it so they didn't want people they didn't want the residents to band together.
Right.
So they would pit you. They would reward you for outing people doing anything.
Yeah. No, there was I think I just kind of learned to keep a low profile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just kind of fall in line.
Yep.
Until I could find my way out.
And what were the people that worked, the pastors, and what what did you do during the day? What was the way that they were trying to change your life?
So it was up at 5 a.m., and you're up, you got to read, I want to say it was Proverbs. You got to read book of Proverbs every day, every morning. They do this church service type of thing every day. And then you go out on a work crew, they would serve it was beans and rice, garbage food every day, that had been donated. And the flies were just, it's disgusting. I got used to having flies all over my food while I was eating. It was a gross place. And so you go out on a work crew, and it was a lot of it was working for orphanages, building walls, like cinder block walls, concrete stuff, a lot of woodworking stuff, construction work.
Did you learn skills?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely like learned
how to build stuff.
I mean, I've been taking stuff apart since I was a kid.
Right.
But so it was hard work. They work it out of you. You're like limited supply of food and water all day. And then you come back
Limited water?
Yeah, you'd get like a bottle of water a day.
That's it.
Middle of summer. Yeah. I mean,
like you couldn't get more water.
No, it was like whatever you got when you were out during the day.
Yeah, that's what.
And I think part of that was like you're not leaving. We're not going to give you enough that you could take with you. We're like, if you want something, we are in complete control.
Right.
So, and it was just kind of like, I was like, I could do this for 2 months. And one of the guys was leaving, and I wrote a note, and I said, hey, he was kind of like in a couple towns over where I lived. It just happened to work out that way. I gave him a letter, and I said, hey, mail this to this address, right? Don't know if he was ever going to do it or not. Just, hey, give it a shot. And then like a couple of weeks went by, and I came back from a work crew, and they were like, hey, your Uncle Jim came by. He was down here fishing, and your mom told him where you were, and he just wanted to come down and see how you're doing. And I was thinking, my Uncle Jim died 2 years ago. He drank himself to death.
Right.
And I'm like, well, what was he driving? And they're like, oh, a white truck. And I immediately knew it was my dad. And so, sure enough, Uncle Jim shows up 2 hours later, like around dinner time, and he's like, what is this place? I can't believe you're here. This place is what it is. And he gave me like a little watch, not even with the band, just a watch with the time. And he was like, hey, and the driveway was about a quarter mile long to a dirt road.
Okay.
And
did they let you alone with him?
I mean, we were kind of like,
when he handed you the thing, like, because.
So I think by him showing up, we were kind of in a group setting, and it was totally secretive,
Right.
But by him showing up, so they were like every other weekend, they would have like visiting, right?
Oh, okay.
And during this time, like a couple of days prior to that, they would hide the holes in the back. They would like put as much lipstick on this pig as they could.
Right.
So by him showing up and actually see what was really going on, they were kind of like on their heels.
Okay.
I could just feel it from like the energy,
Yeah.
So he gave me this watch, and he goes, at 11 o'clock, when it's at 11 o'clock, you see headlights, he goes, you start running towards that road. And at nighttime, so there's the 1, 2, and 3 house.
Okay.
And at the 2 house, there was always 2 guys at night. There was always 2 of like the employee workers, whatever you want to call them, volunteers.
Prison guards,
looking for runners, And I just remember like I was like full of adrenaline.
I can't even imagine.
All I got to do is make it to that road.
So how did you, because there's no windows, what's the sleeping arrangement that allowed you to get out of the house? Because getting out of the house,
it's just bunks.
It's just bunks, but are there doors?
Oh, no, there's no doors. Oh, and you know what I forgot to
So
talk
it doesn't
about?
close. There's no it's literally just a...
Yeah, it's open.
Structure. Okay, it's open.
Yeah, just a door jam. And what I forgot to mention was, so after about a month of being there, I had kind of got the time schedule down, and I had realized, like, hey, there's, I think it was on Sundays, we would go into Ensenada to like a real church service, right? And so they could show their face and be like, oh, look how good we're treating these children, And so while this was all going on, you have like 10, 15 minutes of commotion. And I'm like, this is my chance. I'm taking off. And we were like 15 miles from Ensenada. And I did. I ran through there was like a wash, ran up the wash, ran through the back of the hills. And I was just running up the direction I knew to go to.
And was anyone behind you?
Another guy got out with me. Yeah. No,
another kid.
Another kid. Yeah.
But not.
They
guards.
didn't know we were gone.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And so we made it. We made it all the way to Ensenada, and then we started.
Wait. Stop. So this is
before my dad.
Okay, this is before your dad. Okay, so this is a different. Okay, so we're going.
I'm backing up a little.
We're back in. Yeah. Okay. So you had an escape attempt before dad. So let's do that. Yeah.
And so because of like our.
So you ran to Ensenada with another kid.
Yep. And because of like our quote charitable work to the local community.
Right.
And in turn, law enforcement was like on their side. So we were coming up. There's like a main road going into town, and I saw the guy Jack, the director of the place. I saw his car going back and forth.
The director of the Calvary.
Of the Mexico facility.
Yeah. Okay.
And I saw his car, and I like remember like drop into the ground, and we were in like the bushes, and I dropped into these bushes, and I'm like, what's that smell? And there was literally like a dog that had been rotting out next to me, and I was like, I can't be here. And I like got up and just started booking it. And behind him was like 4 or 5 cars in a van of the federales, like local police.
Oh my God.
And they all went lights and sirens. The other kids stopped. I started booking it and just like running through little towns, side roads, and they caught me at full gunpoint. You know, these guys, they look like military.
Federales.
Put me in the back of the van, and then they took me to jail in Ensenada. And they left me there for like 2.5 days. And the whole time I was in the jail, this is like not U.S. jail, right? It's a concrete room with a hole in the ground, is basically what it is.
So everybody goes to the bathroom in the hole in the ground?
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just a concrete like seat with a hole in it.
And how many people are in the...
Well, the one I was in, it was just like drunks, right? They would bring a guy in, he would be in there for like a couple hours, and they would take him out. It was just like a drunk tank.
Okay, but you were a kid. They put you in with the adults.
Oh, yeah. There is no juvenile hall.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was there, they were asking me, telling me to call my family for money. They were like, call your parents. And I'm like, look, the best I could communicate, right, was like, Dad's not coming. And Mom left me. Like, you guys aren't going to get anything from me.
Yeah. I'm not worth anything.
And so like 2.5 days, I think I was there. They
gave up?
No, the director showed up, the guy Jack. And they released me to him. And so he brought me back. And and I had known about the punishments, right? And the punishment that I got was I had to dig a 10 by 10 by 10 hole in the ground, like back down in that wash, the riverbed.
Yeah.
I was supposed to dig a hole. And
it's like a grave.
Yeah, basically you dig this hole.
Yeah.
And it's like rock. It's not like,
Yeah.
And then fill it back in, right? That was supposed to be my punishment. I was like, I'm not doing that. And they were like, well, we're not going to give you any food or water until you dig that hole. And so I dug down about 4 feet. I dug 4 or 5 feet straight down, and I dug out like a little cove, right? And I stayed in there for like another 2 days.
Without food or water?
Yeah, they didn't give me food or water that whole time. And this is like middle of July. So by the time I came out of that hole, from my edge of my shoulders to my collarbone, on both my shoulders and my ears was blistered. My ears were completely scabbed up.
From the sun.
I was completely sunburned. My nose was completely sunburned. And what I did after, and they were finally like, this kid's going to die out here. So they did pull me out of the hole.
Called their bluff.
And after that, like, I was just like, all right, I'm halfway through. I'm just going to do this. So then a couple weeks later, that's when my dad showed up.
Okay. So Dad shows up. He says, run out when you see the headlights, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I mean, I was full speed.
Oof, I can't even imagine.
Down this long dirt driveway. And it's like a quarter mile is not that long.
I couldn't even breathe, like laying down, going to bed. You're just like...
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Oh.
And I was like, all I got to do is get to the road. Like it's no longer me against
tunnel vision.
These guys.
Yeah.
It's like, I got some backup finally.
Yeah.
And so we get out there and we get to the road. And the guys are behind me. They're probably 15, 20 feet.
Okay, so
they're on my tail.
They're running.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you went by yourself or someone else came with you?
No, just me.
Just you. Okay, so you run out.
Yeah, I didn't say anything to anybody.
Yeah.
And so I was running out, and we get all the way to the road, and my dad gets out of the truck, and these guys are like, 15, 20 feet behind me. And my dad lifts his waistband, pulls a gun out, and points at these two guys and says, if you guys get on and get any closer, you guys aren't going to live to see tomorrow.
Why didn't he just... book the truck? Like, they're on foot. You're in a truck. Why not just keep going?
So how this road is, it's a one lane road, right? You have a hill on one side and then a fence line on the other.
Okay.
You have the driveway, and there's it's not just, hey, keep going straight into the middle of nowhere. Okay. We had to turn around. There was and I'm come to find out once we got back to the border, my dad was completely drunk, and he'd been high on meth for a few days. So
lucky you, actually.
Yeah. Not only was his behavior it was how he is when he gets loaded.
Yeah.
And then sprinkle some meth on that.
Yeah.
So it was like a little
serious.
Intense.
That's some gangster shit. Okay, so he said he pulls a gun and they stop.
Oh yeah, dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, we don't want any trouble." And he was like, "Well, then we're leaving."
Turn around.
Yeah, yeah. And my adrenaline was pumping at the time.
Oh, I bet you were so excited.
Yeah, it's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
And,
I mean,
not only was it like an extreme situation,
yeah,
but it was like that feeling of like, I got you guys,
yeah,
I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
And so we ended up turning around. Those guys left. I think this is when Jack came out. Jack hadn't come out yet. So when we turned around, we were on this janky road.
Yeah.
And while we were turning around, the ass end, the rear axle went down in this ditch, and the guy's truck stuck.
No.
And I'm just like, oh no, this is it. They've already called. I'm sure they've got a hold of the law enforcement.
Oh no.
And so one of the orphanages that we used to do work for was 2 miles down the road. And I'm like, oh, well, hey, I think I know where to get some help, right? So we walked all the way to Sword
You had
Ridge.
time to do this?
We were like, so this mile, the road that goes into the place is probably 15 miles long.
Oh, okay.
So we were already probably 3 or 4 miles down the road.
Okay.
They couldn't see. They were probably back at the ranch trying to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
This kid just got out of here, right?
Yeah.
And so we walked like 2 miles to the orphanage, and I don't remember the guy's name. And I'm like, hey, I'm here. Jack sent me over here. And my dad was with me that this guy had never seen. And I don't know why he didn't ask any questions. I'm like, hey, Jack sent me down here. This guy got his truck stuck. You think you could help? I knew they had a big van, right? I'm like, hey, you think you could help tow us out? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. You know, and my dad speaks fluent Spanish, being a painter for all those years, like he learned the language. And so we go down and they tow us out. And as he's towing us out, the guy Jack and those 2 guys show back up. And they were talking in Spanish to each other. Hey, don't you help these people? This is so. And that's when the gun came out again. And the guy was basically put in a position where you're pulling the truck out, or all of you guys aren't walking away. And pulled us out, and then we drove all the way.
So he pulled you out at gunpoint.
Yeah, there was like no option. Like, we're either taking your van or you're pulling the truck out.
Right.
I'm getting like excited talking about it.
Yeah.
And so we drove all the way back to the border, and we found like there was like the first fast food place where it was.
Yeah.
And we got back to the border early in the morning. It was like sun was just coming up.
Yeah.
And we both slept. We slept till like 3 in the afternoon in the truck. He probably needed a nap for sure. And I was just exhausted. You get a adrenaline spike like that, and those living conditions, I was done. And
yeah, I mean, it's amazing you were able to like. Adrenaline is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So you stopped before the border, like you.
No. We as soon as we got across the border.
Oh, across the border. Okay.
Yeah, back we were in like San Diego.
Okay.
No. And and then from there we went to my grandpa's house. And by this time, so come to find out, Mom wasn't even home. Mom was out of town, like on vacation. And my dad's like alcoholism had progressed to where he was full tweaker, full alcoholic. Gnarly lifestyle. And so like that's what I had to go back to. And my attitude. So you were how old? You're still 14. Yeah. And so that experience. That Mexico experience, not only was I like, so I grew up in a religious home, right? I do, there's definitely, I agree with a lot of the moral structure of organized religion, right? Definitely makes it, it had a big effect on me. But my feeling towards God when I got out of that place was there was no God, right? And this God that was shoved down my throat there, if that's the God that treats people like this, then I don't want nothing to do with it. Yeah. And the anger was more than ever.
Oh, gosh.
That like sense of abandonment.
Oh, I can't even
from being
imagine.
dropped down there.
And you must have what's interesting is that you had this break and Dad was out of your life and Mom was the like savior parent.
Yeah.
And then Mom does this and now Dad's the savior parent, even as dysfunctional as he is, like he's the one that showed up.
Yeah. And he was
in a serious way.
Yeah. And I'm sure some of that was like obviously vengeful towards my mom as far as custody goes.
Sure.
Like that was the motivation.
Sure. But at the end of the day, he showed up and held people at gunpoint to get you out of Mexico.
Yeah.
And that had to have had an effect.
Yeah. It was a crazy experience. And so I lived with my dad and his girlfriend at the time I made it like a month, right? Mm-hmm. And it was good and bad for me. It was cool in a way that I could do whatever I want, right? I could get loaded, I could do anything I wanted to do. But at the same time, I was like, I don't want to live this way. I don't want to be here. And
so did Mom know you were back?
Yeah, she had ended up finding it because so my house, the house at the time, my mom's house had an alarm on it, and I needed stuff, and I knew she was gone, and so I broke into the house. The alarm went off. I got my stuff out and I left, but I'm pretty sure one of the neighbors told her. Yeah, we saw your son was back, and somehow I don't even remember how it happened. How I got in contact with she was my seventh grade math and science teacher, awesome lady, you know what I mean? She's like one of those like people she was an angel put in my life, and I somehow got a hold of her and she offered to take me in. She was like, you can come live with me, you got rules, and but you can come stay with me, and for whatever reason I just had like a ton of respect for this woman, and I was willing to be like, okay, I'll walk the line in your house, as long as I'm at your house, I'll walk the line. And I shared a room with her son, and then her daughter lived there as well. And there was like a little bit of like stability. Like she was like, I could talk to this woman, right? Yeah. She knew I was angry. She knew the stuff I was up to and the people I was hanging out with, right? And I never felt like judged by it. You know, she like was able to like give me suggestion and be stern about it. Like say things like, what are you doing? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? You know, not in a negative way, but like
why are you going down this?
Yeah.
But I mean, what did she think of the Mexico thing?
Oh, like, it's insane.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know what went on behind when I wasn't around. Like if something was ever said to my parents or whatever.
Yeah.
She put herself in a position where she's a female teacher taking in a 14-year-old boy.
Oh yeah.
You know, so she stuck her neck out for me.
She did. And she put you in with her son.
Yeah. And I shared a room with her son, who was 4 years my senior. And we just hit it off, you know, and it was like, it made a huge impact in my life. Like that woman made a huge impact.
Are you still in touch with her?
No, I burned that to the ground, and that's like actually like one of those things I struggle with still. Like, I definitely owe that woman amends, and I don't know why in like sobriety I haven't been able to like pull through with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's definitely on my mind a lot.
Yeah. Do you know where she is?
No, but I mean, in today's age, I could probably find her.
Yeah.
You know, that's like one of the burdens I still carry in sobriety, and I'm sure. And here's what I know: as soon as all I have to do is pick up that phone, right? Yeah. And I know this woman would.
What's the fear?
I don't know. You know what? There's still part of me that's like, because of like how that relationship ended, you know, and some of the things I did, you know, that it's like I'm not deserving of that. I'm not deserving of that forgiveness, you know.
Like the forgiveness would almost be a burden too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like you'd rather be like you're used to being the bad guy, right?
Yeah. There's part of me that's still a sense of comfort. You know what I mean?
Right. Like that's a role you know how to be.
Yeah.
And what happened in that relationship?
So I lived with her for like a year and a half. So was I like 16, 14?
And you were in school?
Oh, yeah. Playing in school, playing sports. And I did I did as much as I could get away with. You know, like I was a star football player. So it was all my teachers were my coaches. Mm-hmm. And I would never do my homework. I would never do any reports. I could sit in class, pay attention, and get an A on the test, right? Just enough so I could maintain the GPA to play ball. And they would be like, well, why didn't you do the report? And I'm like, because I don't want to.
Right. I'm
not going to. It cuts into I'm already like trying to sneak. This lady had a pretty tight grasp on my getting loaded behavior, right? Yeah. So it was like, I'm already all my extra energy is working, I'm getting loaded.
Right.
And so after like a year and a half of living with her, and it was just probably what it was. It was probably, I just wanted to get loaded. Like I couldn't do it anymore, right? Yeah. And so this was 10th grade. And by this time, my mom had moved down to Orange County.
And your mom wasn't trying to get you back?
No. I was like, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? So I was still up in the desert. She hadn't sold the house yet. So I moved back into my house I grew up in. And I started getting in trouble again. I started getting loaded again all the time. And I got arrested up here. I got arrested up there, got sent to juvenile hall, and got put on like formal probation. That was like my first experience with formal probation. And so I lived at the house. I was on house arrest. And here's the crazy thing: like when I first got out of jail or juvenile hall, I was like a flight risk, you know?
Yeah.
And they didn't put a ankle bracelet on me, but my probation officer would show up like 5-6 times a day. And I remember multiple times I would wait. I could not wait long enough. Or my probation officer would show up, do the check-in. She would leave, and I would go straight to the liquor store, and I would buy as much alcohol as I could, and just because I needed to just get drunk.
Yeah.
And I was when my mom sold the house and moved to Orange County, they transferred my probation to Orange County.
Oh, okay.
And along with that, because I was like such a high risk for whatever reason up there, they put me on like a high probation down here. But the probation officer they gave me was like, hey, they didn't give me any of the files or anything. You drink or do drugs or anything? And I was like, no, I did something, I got in trouble. He's like, all right. So they didn't drug test me. They never drug tested me. And I had to go to this school that was like a county, it was like end of the line school, right? I was like 130 kids there.
An alternative school?
Yeah, it was an alternative school. Yeah. Where like you get escorted to the bathroom.
Oh, no, don't know that one.
Yeah, sheriffs would show up and like, hey, we're looking for so-and-so today.
Oh, okay.
And so I kind of had, I was able to like hold it together for just long enough to where I turned 18. And once I turned 18 down here, let me back up a little bit. So I was living down in Orange County, and every weekend I was still driving up to the desert, right?
Okay.
I still had my girlfriend up there. I was working for her dad on the weekends. So I was making money and able to like support my drinking and using. And, but there was like a particular time where I would go up there and I would like sleep in my truck. You know, I would just go up there and sleep in my truck if I had nowhere to go. I was just going up there to party.
Yeah.
And I had passed out the night before, and I was like in a dirt lot, sleeping in my truck behind a Circle K. And this was like the first time that I had woke. By this time, I was able to like somewhat control when I ingested alcohol.
Yeah.
And I still remember clear as day. I woke up behind the Circle K, and it was like sun was just coming up, just super hungover, you know, like that, like disgusting feeling. And I was like, something inside me was like, I need to drink now. Like that switch had been flipped. You know what I mean? I went from cucumber to pickle.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah.
And from that day on, even though I had always been like I would say like a daily drinker, I always felt like I could stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And I knew that morning, there was no way to turn this thing off.
Yeah. That feeling is so, I was actually talking to someone about that this morning, about how like I was put in treatment, like outpatient programs and treatment before I had ever tried to stop.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to tell me I have a problem, blah, 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 but I never tried to stop. So I assumed that since I had never tried to stop, I had no reason or belief that I needed to. I assumed that I could.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time where I tried to stop, I first tried to stop using because my boyfriend challenged me, and I remember like, oh, I can't. Like I remember trying and failing.
Yeah.
And going, oh, like that, like, oh, it's not, like we've crossed the line.
Yeah.
And it is like, it's a feeling, it's a switch where you realize like, I'm not in control of this thing.
Yeah.
But you have to, I don't know, you have, like, I think that's an important realization to have in order for you to end up getting sober at some point.
Yeah.
To have that feeling. Like I think it would be very hard to get sober if you didn't really understand that you were no longer in charge.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I tried that for a long time and just wasn't.
Yeah. It's just not like, if you have any semblance that you can manage it, you're going to try.
Yeah.
So you went, bought alcohol at the Circle K, I take it?
Yeah, and it was just on from there. Like, you know, after like the Mexico experience and all the other stuff guys I was hanging out with at the time, just like I had went from like hanging out with the jock crowd, right?
Yeah,
guys who were like good kids.
Yeah.
You know, they still drink beers or whatever. But we're doing life.
Yeah.
To like trailer park lifestyle. You know, just like the guys who had affiliations with organizations that don't deserve to be named, and bad guys, you know, real bad guys.
Yeah.
And I was just like sought lower companions, and I had a belief like I had nothing to live for, right? I had nothing to lose, and I did not care if I woke up every day. I did not care what would happen to me. Physical altercation, there was nothing anyone could do to me physically that came close to how I felt emotionally.
Yeah.
Right. And when I did, like, I'd get my nose broke or black eye or whatever, there was a part of me was like, that's what you get, you know, like that's what you deserve. And it felt like that pain, that physical pain was almost like a sense of relief, you know? Mm-hmm.
Because it distracted from the internal pain?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Like I could feel it, I could see it, and it like, I could push on it and I could touch it, make it, you know, make the pain increase, decrease.
Right,
and it was just like better than how I felt inside. And I lived like that for the next few years. When I turned 18, my solution to like solving my life, it had nothing to do with drugs or alcohol at that time, right? Yeah. I would have looked at you dead in the eyes and said, no, there's nothing.
Yeah.
I can stop whenever I want. Even though I kind of knew I couldn't. But my solution was to go into the military. And I was like, that's what I need. I need the structure.
Right.
We had just gone into Iraq like a couple of years prior. I'm like, I can go overseas, right? I could serve my country. My grandfather was in the military. Mm-hmm. That's what I need, you know? So I went down to the recruiter. I signed all the paperwork, went down to MEPS in LA, did the ASVAB, did really well on the test. And at this...
Which branch?
I was going to go into the Marines.
Okay.
Now, at this time, there was like a tattoo policy where I have too many tattoos. And some of the tattoos I used to have were like, you're not really wanting to show those in public, you know?
Yeah.
And so the Marines was like, hey, look, you have too many tattoos, but good news is the Army will take you. And I'm like, oh, so this abandonment comes up again.
Right. Like, I'm not good enough.
I'm not even good enough to go to war. And
Right.
But the Army will take me. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm pro-military 100%.
Yeah.
But it was like,
but it was
you could
what
go to the B team.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And And part of me was still like, okay, you know what? Like, I want to serve my country.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're like, okay, signed, I did everything I needed to do. And they're like, well, we're just going to need you to drug test. And I'm like, well, I smoke a little weed here and there,
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah, well, here's what we'll do. We'll test you, and then we'll test you again. And I go, yeah, it's been a while. I'll probably be all right. And I had to do the P test. The whole thing lit up across the board. And
of other drugs too.
other drugs. And he goes, hey, the whole thing is lighting up, right? And I was like, well, what's showing up? Because I was kind of curious. I'm like, I didn't even do some of those drugs, right?
Well, that's, yeah.
And at least not that day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, there's something wrong with your test. We got to do another one. He goes, well, I can go get another one. I go, wait, you know what? Let's wait a couple days. I go, okay, I'll come back in like a week. So I was like, this will give me enough time to like clean out my system. I wasn't smoking that much weed at the time. It was just meth and alcohol. Meth like allowed me to drink how I wanted to drink. I could stay up as long as I wanted.
Yep.
And do as much weird stuff as I wanted to do, right? And so I came back, and I had already had the bag in my truck, and I came back on the day I was supposed to drug test, and I had been clean for like 4 days, right? And it was like the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. And I got up to the parking lot, I was like, you know what? I go, all I got to do is get in there and pee, right? So if I take like
right now,
a couple hits right now, there's no way it could get into my system. Genius idea, right? Like brilliant. And
I mean, I completely follow the logic.
Yeah. And so sure enough, I went in there and I failed the drug test. And
with meth.
Yeah, it was meth only. And I looked like a tweaker. By this time I was like 170 pounds.
Right.
Just completely sucked up, 28-inch waist. Like I was a skinny guy.
Wow.
And it was like that. I've had that look a lot of times of like you're a piece, and that's what this guy did. I was like, hey, look, you don't understand. Like they told me, we don't want guys like you. We don't want guys like you in our service. And I go, look, you don't understand. Like, just let me in, and this is going to fix my life. It's going to change my life. He was like, no, don't come back. And that was it. Like, that was my last hope, right? Like, that was my last shot of fixing my life. I knew, for some reason, I just knew, like, I was going to live the rest of my life this way until I die, whether it be tomorrow or in a couple of weeks. I didn't care anymore after that.
Yeah. And how old were you when you got turned down?
That was 18. I was 18.
18. Okay.
Yeah. And so I did. I lived that, tweaker alcoholic lifestyle, burning every relationship I've ever had, letting anyone in my life know that they were number two to alcohol. Mm-hmm. It always started and ended with alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
But I could not have a drink without getting meth. That's just, as soon as I took that drink, it was like, okay, I got to go get some dope,
Yeah.
And then what happened was I started getting arrested. I couldn't live at my mom's house anymore. She had thrown me out. I was living in my truck, and I kept getting arrested, right? I kept getting busted for possession.
Right.
So I had been arrested for the third time in that month, and I was standing in front of Judge Anderson at the Orange County Court, and this guy is like another one of those people I was placed in my life. I feel like there were certain people along this path that God has put in my life.
Yeah.
And this guy was one of them.
Yeah.
And it was nothing that he really did or didn't do. He basically just kind of was straightforward with me. And for whatever reason, I respect that, and he was like, Mr. McAllister, this is the third time I've seen you in my courtroom uninvited, this month. And he goes, you're either going to go, I'm going to give you the option. He goes, you can go into a treatment program, like a drug diversion program, or you can go to prison. I think he said it was 3 years, 8 months. He goes, or you can go to prison for 3 years, 4 years. And I'm like, well, that's an easy choice. I'll take the treatment. And so I did. I went to a treatment center in Orange County. They put me on, surprisingly, a very low-level drug diversion program. And because I went to the treatment center, I didn't have a PO. I didn't have to show up. I just couldn't get in any more trouble.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was introduced to Orange County AA, right? And I managed to stay sober for 88 days before I started getting loaded. I would show up. I didn't do any of the work. I didn't do any of I didn't get a sponsor.
The emotional work, yeah.
I wasn't willing to be honest with anybody. At that time, I felt like if I was honest with you, you could use it against me. There's no way I'm going to be vulnerable with another man. Man or woman. It was a lot easier to just make stories up to get through life than it was to be honest with somebody.
Yeah.
And during this time, I met my now wife,
Right. So that was when you were in treatment?
I just got out of treatment, yeah.
Stay tuned to hear more in just a moment. Hi, it's Ashley, your beloved host. When I'm not hosting the Courage to Change a Recovery podcast, I'm running the recruiting department at Lion Rock Recovery. We are always looking for amazing licensed mental health counselors, along with various other sales and operations positions that pop up from time to time. The Lion Rock culture is one of collaboration, support, and flexibility. Our employees work from home offices all over the country, utilizing technology to connect to one another. We are always hiring. So if you want to have the best job ever, check out our open positions and apply at www.lionrockrecovery.com/about/careers.
And so when we talk about like honesty, like what's some of the stuff that like, you don't have to tell your deepest, darkest secrets, but like what's some of the stuff for people, like I feel like a lot of people don't know that they're not being honest.
Yeah.
And particularly with men who grew up the way you do, where it's like there is a lot of like, be a man.
Yeah.
You know, like there's definitely a culture there. So like it was easier to make up stories than to tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Right? What was the truth?
Yeah, so like there was a lot of shame that came along with how I felt growing up. You know what I mean? I was just super ashamed of it. I wasn't going to tell you, you know, that like my mom used to have to wake me and my brother up in the middle of the night because she didn't know if my dad was going to kill us, you know, or himself. And we'd have to go stay at like, you know, my mom's friends' houses or...
Because he was drinking?
Yeah, because he was drinking and violent.
And you were ashamed that happened in your house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't going to say anything, you know, or there was another time, you know, we used to go to the river all the time. You know, we would go to the river every weekend. And there was a time we broke down, and I was like a kid. I was like 3, 4 years old. And I talked to my mom about this probably 6 or 7 months ago. So I'm like, hey, I have this memory of like my dad slamming my mom over the hood of the car, right? Just slamming her into the car. What was that? Did that happen? And she was like, yeah. She told me why, and that was just kind of stuff I was exposed to as a kid. You know, when my dad was drinking, that stuff didn't go on when he was sober, and I was like ashamed of that. You know what I mean? That's not how you treat somebody, right? That's not how
you didn't want to be the kid that grew up in that house.
Absolutely, right. Yeah. I was like embarrassed.
So what did you say instead?
Oh, you know, Dad was like I would say Dad was like a, you know, painting contractor, or like, you know, my mom was just a great mom, or I wouldn't
you just wouldn't even
bring up things like Mexico or...
Got it, okay.
You know?
So those were some that you just really sugar-coated it.
Yeah, and I didn't want the sympathy.
Right.
You know, I didn't want that, like, people...
Because that was part of the shame.
It was shame, and it, like, made me feel weak. You know what I mean? It made me... When people were like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry, like, that made me feel like a weak person.
Right. Because in your head, a strong person, it wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah, you just do it.
Right. Like it wouldn't have affected you.
Yeah, you don't get to whine and complain. You just do it.
Right. Like if you're a man, then this shit happens and you just like...
That's the cards I was dealt.
Yeah. Like don't be like I would imagine having as a man growing up where you grew up as a man, having feelings about your childhood would be like super lame. Like...
Yeah.
Childhood feelings, not a thing.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, so we met at a popular meeting where I actually met my husband.
Yeah.
And your wife took me to my first meeting there. And so at that time, you were sober.
I was sober, yeah.
And you were sober that 88 days. When did you get loaded?
On the 89th day.
Yeah. But I mean, were you seeing Emily when...
I was. Yeah.
When you got loaded?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
I missed that.
So like the first few weeks we were hanging out, I was sober.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But there was no, like I said, there was no programs. I just started going to the meetings, and it was like I wasn't willing to do any of the work. You know, like I said, I grew up in AA, a very, very low bottom AA, and I had that. I would see what those guys look like. And then I remember I was at the Canyon Club down here, and this guy pulls up in like a pink polo shirt and like a bright look at me yellow Ferrari. And he was in the meeting talking about, he knew he had hit bottom when he like had his last $1 million in the bank. And I'm like, these people aren't alcoholic.
Right.
Like there's no way. And if this is what sobriety looks like, I want nothing to do with that. Like I'm not wearing it. That's just not my style. Right. And so that I continued to be...
You looked for the differences, not the similarities.
Absolutely, right? And I was like, I can't relate to that. Not only can I not relate to their outsides, but if that's how their outsides looks, like, there's no way I'm going to be honest with these people. I'll hang out, right?
Yeah.
Get some coffee.
Right.
but I wasn't going to do the work, you know, and I still had a huge resentment towards God at the time. You know, they would say the Lord's Prayer, and I was like, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And what it did was it got me drunk, you know. I was unable to be honest with people, and I ended up drunk.
And how did you make it back from there? Were you so you were still dating Emily?
Yeah.
And you got drunk. What happened?
Yeah. Well, I started smoking weed, right? And I wasn't drinking around her at the time yet, but I was.
Is this when she wanted to smoke weed?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she came. So Emily and I were roommates at the time, and she started telling me how she wanted to move somewhere and start to grow weed.
Yeah.
And I started calling her Farmer Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was like, so you want to go be a farmer? Like, what's the like? That's interesting. Okay, I didn't remember that piece of it, but yeah, I remember like she had been sober a while, and she started to like talk about that.
Yeah, and I wanted to leave. I was still on probation at that time. I couldn't leave the county. And I was like, hey, like, so I was basically in a way, like I was trapped in Orange County. You know, I couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And it's just not where I wanted to be.
Right.
It's completely different than where I grew up. And so, yeah, we were, you know, there was a day that came along where I had moved myself in, right? I'd taken a hostage and moved myself in. And then now that I lived there, it was my house, and I was going to smoke weed there.
Right.
Right? I'd hijacked the situation.
Right.
And that lasted, you know, a couple of weeks until eventually she lost her sobriety too, right?
Yeah.
Which was like still a huge weight for me, right? Like, I feel like responsible for that, you know? And she has her own reasons, but regardless, like I was definitely part of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And my wife, so I drink how I drink. I drink like I'm on a suicide mission, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to go out anywhere.
Yeah.
I want to get as much as I can.
Yep.
And be solo.
Yeah. Emily always said, she was like, you and Mike are like hope to die. Like that's just like, and that's how I was too. It was like, I really am not interested in like, I want to be interested in doing it like that, but there's no part of me that can, because it's just not interest. Like I aspire to be, but it's just not there. I just want to like get as loaded as I can by myself.
I want to get, just go wide open the whole time.
Yeah. Like I don't want to have to like think about how this looks or worry about anything that has to do with that. Like I just want to be as like as possible.
Yeah. Lock the door and maybe peek out the blinds every 15 minutes.
Every 15.
You know, and then take apart a vacuum or something. So my wife got in the ring with that. You know, we got into it was a extremely like dysfunctional, gross relationship, you know?
Yeah.
And I have a temper. I'm the same way. You know, when I drink, I do things when I'm drunk that I would never do sober, and my mind tells me that it's okay. Yeah. You know? And my wife is the same way. You know, we were like both physical. You know, my wife is very what's the word you'd use?
I got lots of words.
She's like a firecracker.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. She's 5'3".
Yes.
But she's got a big personality. You know, she's got a 6'5" personality. Yeah. And I mean, I would imagine she would not.
She gets in the ring swinging.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Full, you know, and and so for like
she and I almost got in a fist fight.
Yeah,
and I mean, I was sober. I hadn't been in a fist fight in so long, and I was like, "Are we gonna do this? Yeah. Like, is this happening?" You know. Yeah. But I would, and loaded. I would imagine, and I remember when she did get loaded. You know, it's so hard. Those situations, like how as the friend, how to like how close do you how much do you get in like get close to that
it's
tornado? Yeah, it was really painful, and like I think I was like, I love you, I'm here, I'm not mad at you, but like I don't know where we fit in each other's lives at this point right now. You know, call me if you need anything. I'll always show up, but like I don't know. And she did call me once. She called me once. I don't know if you remember this. It was during finals. I hadn't talked to her in maybe a year or something. And called me and was like, I don't remember what was going on, but it was really bad. And she was like, I need Mike out of the house, and I need you to come help me get him out. Yeah. And I was like, well, call 911. And I had known you sober and known your anger. Like I remember you got mad at a parking attendant and made a comment about like waiting in the back of your truck with a sledgehammer when they would like come back. And I was like, oh, he's serious. Like there's a grudge. Like once you're angry at someone, that's what I picked up. Once you're angry at someone, like you are that is like, you hold on to that, right? Like, it's like, it's not a passing, like, oh, that's really annoying. You know, like there's that anger is constantly being sparked. And so she called me and I came down there and like, you were super high on meth and getting you out of the house. And I was legitimately afraid of you, like legitimately like, if he comes back, I can't come back here. Like,
and I don't remember that.
You don't remember this?
No.
Oh yeah. So I came and I was like, if I came down, because Emily couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I came down, I called Joanne, like backup, whatever. And I came down and I just remember you grabbing your shoes and I came in and I was like, you have to leave.
Yeah.
Like, you have to leave now or I'm calling the cops.
Yeah.
And you looked at me like you were going to kill me.
Yeah.
And you were super high. And I was like, this is so scary. I remember like I've hung out with a lot of scary people, but like you, when you're loaded, is so like your anger is palpable.
Yeah.
And you left, and I said to Em, like, he knows where I live. Like, I'm genuinely afraid, like, you know, and then you were back like a week later and I was like, I love you, but like, I can't help you if you're not willing to like,
totally, I get it.
You know, that whole situation. But yeah, it was super scary.
Yeah. See, and I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Were we in the studio at the time?
Uh-huh. The downstairs one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have any recollection of that.
Yeah, I was super freaked out. Super, super freaked out. And it was at night too. So I was just like, oh, he's so mad at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understandably. Understandably. Like, why wouldn't you be mad at me?
I mean, looking back, like, that's how I lived my life.
Totally.
You know, like, that's, I don't remember it, but wouldn't put it past myself.
But that's the thing about why when we talk about you being 10 years sober.
Yeah.
And why, like, you in particular, I think because I knew you, like, I had experiences with you loaded. That's what's so remarkable about it, because people like you don't get sober and stay sober for 10 years. Like, I saw that person who's like that angry, and in order for you to stay sober, I know what it takes to stay sober 10 years.
Yeah.
And I know what hope to die, alcoholic, drug addict, angry, I know what that work looks like because I did that work.
Yeah.
And like, one of my amends to my family was that I was not allowed to put my hands on, that I would never put my hands on them again. Yeah. That was amends I made. Like, I had like I'm a 3-year-old. Like, I will not hit my family. You know what I mean? Like, I was embarrassed that had to be an amends, that had to, like, you know, I reached across the table like 2 years ago. Marina, my sister, was sitting next to me and she went like this, like completely like flinched back. And I looked at her, I was like, did you think I was going to hit you? And she was like, sorry, it's just, I thought like, and we had this weird interaction and I had to like get up from the table and go like cry, like the effect we have on people, like I don't remember, right? Like you don't remember, I don't remember, but like my anger was explosive. And for you to stay sober 10 years with that kind of anger and that kind of stuff means you did the work. Yeah. Because you can't do it. You can't put that many days together sober and not do some work. It's too hard. Right. Yeah, it's great. Like, I relate when guys come in and have similar like stories as mine, right? Yeah. Drink like I drink, use like I use. But I don't like, it's hard for me to look back and like recognize that person. Yeah. You know? Totally. So you and Em eventually break up. Yeah. And so that was, I got with her when I was 20. And from 20 to... And she's 8 years older. She's old. Yeah. Okay. Our whole relationship started on lies, basically. Right. Right? Like, I thought she was a certain age. Oh, that's right. How old did she say she was? She was 28 at the time. Right. How she lied about it? No. She said she was 28. Oh, but I thought she was like 22. Oh, you lied about your age. So I told her I was 24 at the time. That's right. So I'm like, I want to spend some time with this girl, right? And so we hung out for a couple weeks before I was like, hey, I got to tell you, like, I need to tell you something. Yeah. And so I told her I was 20. And she was like, had this I think she actually hit me. And she had like a reaction, and then that lasted about 10 minutes, and it was like, so you want to go get something? Yeah. I was like, moving on. Yeah, and so we had this like extremely hostile relationship, and there was a couple times during that 3-year period where we had tried to get sober. Right, I would try to get sober, she would try to get sober, and
And it was just in and out, in and out. And this was like, obviously I knew I had a problem, right? And I was willing to admit I had a drug problem.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stop drinking.
Right.
But I knew I couldn't drink without getting high.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, at this time, I wasn't willing to do any of the work still. Like I would do a little bit more each time.
Right.
But then when it came down to like put the work in, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I ended up loaded. And I there's that like, I would just repeat the insanity. I thought I could do it differently this time. I could do it this way. I could do it this way. And for me, I needed that. I needed alcohol, drugs and alcohol to kick my ass enough times to where I was finally broken to like give it a shot, you know? And that's what happened. So we had split up and this was like a permanent deal. There was some stuff that went down where like there was no way we were getting back together.
Yeah.
And
no coming back from it.
no coming back. Yeah. And I'd always, when I was younger, I'd always been in, construction, and this was like the time where the construction industry collapsed. There was no work, wages had been driven down. I was actually working for Randy, and I'd been like, that project ended, and I had been laid off. So the only job I could hold down was I was like cleaning kennels at an animal hospital, right? Mm-hmm. And I would just show up. I was able to be loaded all the time. It was like, me and her were separated, so it was poor me. And I was like, I'd come to terms with like, okay, I can't drink because I get high. I'll go get meth. And when I get on meth, I get in trouble.
Right.
So if I could just smoke pot, if I could just smoke weed and get my hands on these animal medication, like I could go through life like that, right? And so from like June or July to November, that's what I did, right? And by those few months, by the end of that, like I was gonna put a pistol in my mouth. Like I could not do life anymore.
Why did you want to die? Like,
I knew the consequences of the drugs and alcohol, right? Of my behavior on that, right? Mm-hmm. I hurt people physically, emotionally, right? I just destroy people's lives, whether I want to or not. Like that's my behavior. Yeah. And I couldn't do that anymore, and I couldn't go on like with how I was living. It just wasn't good enough anymore. Yeah. I couldn't get high enough to feel okay. Yeah.
Stopped working.
And for whatever reason, I was like at my mom's house, back at mom's house. And I was in my brother's bathroom, and I was smoking like my last bowl, blowing it out the window. And I just remember like I just had like this like feeling of like desperation and willingness to be like, okay, I'll give it one more shot, right? Mm-hmm. I don't care about the guy who wears the leather shoes with no socks, right? Like he'll eventually get his life together and start wearing socks. But that can't be a reason I'm not gonna.
Right. Like I'm going around judging all these people, but like I'm smoking weed in my mom's bathroom.
Yeah, they're laughing, right? They're smiling. They're like they're living good lives. They're doing things, right? And supposedly they think like I think. I'm willing to be like, okay.
Yeah.
And a couple years prior to that, I had been in a sober living, right? And the guy next to me, this is like when I started getting loaded. I was still living in a sober living when I first met him. The guy living next to me is still sober. He's a good friend of me. But I was being like one room smoking meth at the sober living house before I got kicked out. And he was like getting a job and like doing things, right? So, and when I saw that he was still around, I was like, well, shit, like maybe, I know him.
Yeah.
I could hang out with him.
Yeah.
And so there was a birthday party. There was like a 1-year birthday party right at one of our friends' houses. And I showed up there. It was like day one. I had nowhere else to go. And I showed up to like just be around, right? It was either like go get loaded or
be here.
Get here or shoot myself.
People. You're right, right.
And I started talking to this guy, Chris, and we started talking. And he was like, hey, I need to go use the bathroom. So we went up into the apartment and we started talking, and like I just like broke down, right? And Chris, tattooed from the neck down to the fingertips, like just a kind of like a dude who I would never show emotion in front of, and I broke down and I cried like a little baby. And I said, look, dude, like I'm going to die. I can't live this way anymore. Like I need some help. And he was there for me, and I called that guy. I called him every day. And like he was the first guy I could get honest with, and
what was his reaction to you crying? Right. Was he like,
he didn't care. He didn't give a shit.
He was just loving and amazing.
Yeah. And, like he understood, right? I could tell he understood the pain, you know? And he was the first guy I was able to get honest to. And this was like a turning point where when I was able to be honest with another man in a similar situation, right, who parties the way I party, they have similar stories, right? And so there would be like this exchange, you know, where I would open up a little bit and then he would tell me something, right? And then I would open up, and it was like healing to know that like I wasn't alone, you know? And so I was like starting to work with him, and I was going to meetings every day. And then I had met Chad when I first started coming around, right? And he's like another one of those guys for me who like God has put in my life.
Yeah.
And we're still working at that animal hospital. And Chad called me one day and he was like, "Hey, I started a business with your background. Will you come work for me?" And he goes, "It was more money. I need you to go drive around and take care of whatever." And I was like, "Yeah." So what that did was it put me in my truck like 10 hours a day, driving around all over Southern California. And I would just like smoke 2 packs of Camels, and I would listen to speaker CDs all day. That's all I did. I'd go to the Gucci, I'd get a bunch of CDs, and I would just listen to them all day. And that experience of driving around was so, when I'm driving around, right, and just like raging, you know, I was angry when I got sober.
Yeah.
And I would listen to these people, and I wasn't able to look at them and judge them.
Right.
I would just hear these people, and I would laugh, right, and I would relate, and I would like.
You couldn't see them. That's interesting.
I couldn't see them, right? And it made a huge
difference.
And I would hear people like Patty O or Scott Redmond, and this guy Larry T who's a plumber, who's like hilarious, right? And it was the first time I was able to like laugh because I related to the thinking, right? Yeah. And it was just like, and it would just kind of keep me focused, and I was able to go to the next meeting, right? Yeah. And then it's like I just started putting days together, you know, and I was willing enough to just do a little bit more, right? Just do a little bit more, and it kind of grew and grew and grew. And then like 6 months in, once I got 6 months of sobriety, I was like, okay, by that time I had never built anything. The good thing was I never got any credit. I never burned anything to the ground. I never acquired anything, right? So I had nothing. I lived my life like I had nothing to lose, and I didn't. I had nothing. And so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna stay sober, right, and if I'm gonna build myself a life like these other people are doing, I need to find something to do. So I went back to school. I went to like a technical school, and got into a trade. And during this time, my now wife, I was back with them. We had gotten back together. We were doing like couples counseling. And
it was so funny when you guys got back. Everyone was like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah. Well, so when I first got sober, we had a dog together, right?
Right.
And I would be like, when you come off a long road of meth, you start to like, your physical appearance changes pretty quick. So I had this like mindset of like, well, I can just go see the dog, and she could see how good I'm doing.
Right.
We would occasionally run into each other at meetings, right? We kind of had the same friends, so it was my way of like manipulating the situation to kind of see if we had to work out. And so we eventually like got back together. She had gotten sober before me, and like a year and a half in, my wife, she got pregnant, right? I was in school full time, I was working full time, and she was in cosmetology school full time. So like total beauty school, you know, pregnant girl, 9 months pregnant in beauty school, and it was gnarly. And what happened, by that time, I still was mad at God, right? I still did not have a God in my life that was like, I was like at a point where like I came to believe in a power greater than myself, right? But I didn't know what that power was, if I even trusted that power, right? But I was like, okay, I acknowledge there might be something,
right?
You know, and so my wife got pregnant, and with my first daughter, and then I had this experience when my first daughter was born. So besides all the stuff going down, when you're on like the opposite end of the barrel of the baby coming out, there's a lot of stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
And when my daughter came out and I heard her cry, I started crying. Right? I saw God. It was the first time I ever felt love like that. I knew, like, for whatever reason, I was kept alive for a purpose.
Yeah.
There's something out there that can bring something like that into this world, right? And I could do business with that. Yeah. I was able to, like, start to believe in something good, you know?
And then the sleep deprivation kicked in.
And I haven't slept in 8 years.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. So life just started going, you know? And so I was, a year and a half, 2 years sober at that time. But I was able to, like, now I was completely open. I had developed this concept of God I could believe in, you know?
Yeah.
And life was moving. I was getting sober. I was able to, like, and that's where, like, I was able to be honest with him. And I had been beat up so much by drugs and alcohol, and I wasn't willing to go back that I became willing to tell those things to men.
Yeah.
Right? Whether like I was embarrassed or not. Like the feeling of embarrassment was worth not having to go back to the way I was living.
And was the embarrassment like, was it as bad as you thought it was going to be when you said those things? You know?
No, it wasn't at all. Like,
did anyone laugh at you or shame you?
Oh, I definitely got laughed at. Yeah, for sure. But it wasn't in a way of like, it wasn't in like a mean way.
Yeah.
It wasn't like how I thought it was going to be.
Right.
They would share something with me and I would just be like blown away and laugh at them. You know?
Right.
And that's like something I found in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like there's a lot of things I can talk about with my sober friends that I would never in a million years tell people I work with.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so life just started changing. But, you know, and then when I got sober, I started facing the other things. Like now that drugs and alcohol aren't in my life anymore, I still have to address my behavior and my thinking, right?
Yeah.
And when you're I'll tell you what, when I'm doing those things that I suggested and outlined, right? I feel it's a lot easier for me to go through life and feel like a normal human being.
Yeah. It's much easier. And I think, I mean, for me at least, I don't really have the choice to not do those things because my behavior gets like, you know, step one is like our lives were we were powerless and our lives are unmanageable, right? And like my life, if I'm not doing the work, I'm powerless and unmanageable without alcohol. Like, to my knees, bottom, crying, staring up, begging God to take me or make it better, you know? Yeah. And I don't need drugs and alcohol to feel that way.
No.
And drugs and alcohol just helped with that until they didn't. And, you know, I think there's some people who don't have to work as hard. I'm not one of those people. Like, my alcoholism had progressed so significantly, like yours, that like I'm not one of those people because I will use anything to feel better, and I'll do it in sobriety.
Yeah.
And so that work that we talk about is a daily practice. Like it's more like just the practice of being connected to the community, you know, telling the truth, like showing up, suiting up, showing up, telling the truth.
Yeah.
And then things just change, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And then like I won't even see it in myself.
Right.
You know, and I'll see it in other guys and I'll see like how they look when they come in, how the steps they take, right? Their action, you know, the amount of willingness and action that they do. And then I see their results and I'm like, man, like it's just insane. And I'm sure that's how people feel about us, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
As it's a lot easier to see it in somebody else. And that's how I know the program works.
Right.
You know?
Right. We watch it.
Yeah.
So with your mom, like, and when you dealt with the Mexico stuff, what did that look like? Like, did you talk to your mom about it? How did you let go of that anger?
Not until I got sober, even with the stuff with my dad. You know what I mean? Like, here's one thing, getting sober with the relationship with my parents. When I got sober, right, I'm a full-blown alcoholic. And when I started to learn what that actually meant, right, how that actually makes me behave, and I'm able to kind of like see someone else's perspective on things, right? Not just how I want to make it be in my head. Like when my mom sent me to that place, that was probably the best she could do. You know what I mean? When somebody advertises, and I mean, she's a mom who loves her son, that she probably thought she was doing a good thing. She didn't know that that's how the experience was going to be,
right?
You know, or the effect it was going to have on me, or right. So I'm able to understand that, you know, and like those times, I understand why my dad behaves the way he behaves,
right?
You know, like it makes sense to me. I know, I could tell you 100%. If I went out and drank today, I would. Nothing else in my life means a damn thing. Even my kids, my wife, my job, not because by choice, but because that's how it is, right? I get so handcuffed by alcohol, that nothing else matters.
Yeah, it's a terrifying. You know, I so really like. I was young, so I had very little to lose. Like I didn't really have anything, didn't significant others or kids or anything, and like. One of the things that's so scary now when I deal with my alcoholism in whatever form it's showing up in is that like I have so much to lose, and it's the scariest thing ever. Like having a disease, a brain disease that tells you lies.
Yeah.
And having a lot to lose and a lot of people who count on you and having, you know, little kids that look up to you, it's scarier than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Like because you know, it's one thing when it's just you, right? And your parents and whatever. And it's another thing like when you've built stuff and it forces you to either grow or go, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I mean, getting sober was one thing, but staying sober has been like, it's like I get to learn about myself. You know what I mean? Things that, I know, I don't know, or what I think I know. Like being a parent, there's like guys I reach out to and seek help. I seek advice for, my marriage and how to discipline my kids and different behaviors, or, hey, I need to go down to the school and talk to such and such. This is what I want to say.
Yeah.
I know how this will probably play out.
Right.
Do you have any advice? What do you think how do you think I should handle this? You know?
And then do you take the advice?
Yeah, 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've learned when I don't take the advice, or if I do things my way, it's probably going to be painful.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I have low tolerance for pain these days.
Yeah.
Like I really do.
Yeah.
I really like little pain, and I'm like, I don't need a belt. I'm just terrified of, okay, I'll change.
Yeah.
So, when I know that my way, not that it's perfect, but I just can't sit in the pain the way that I once did.
Yeah. I don't like feeling it.
Yeah.
Even being sober, and it's like, well, I know what I need to do.
Right. Right.
And it's been that way in my sobriety. Like I'll go through these 3-6 month periods where you're going you go up and down on this journey, right? Mm-hmm. And it directly relates to how much I'm putting in and what I'm doing.
Right. And life gets busy. I mean, you get busy, you have all these obligations, you build this, you have a great career that you've built. And, I want to say something about that, which is that, you had these experiences with law enforcement and drugs and whatever, and it was definitely something people could see and look at, on some sort of record or whatever, and that you now are heavily integrated with law enforcement, and have this amazing career now where you are trusted and like probably in a place you never thought you would, you would possibly, you probably do, hang out with law enforcement and, and what a gift that is to that redemption.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So one of the things was now I work directly with law enforcement, and starting that and going, getting all the gnarly background checks.
Yeah.
And the investigations, and they would they show up at your house and they verify you live there and talk to your neighbors, and it was a big deal.
Oh, okay.
And I was just honest with them. Part of the stuff when I got in trouble when I was younger, thank God I didn't violate or get any more trouble. And a lot of the conditions of those is if I completed, did what I needed to do,
it would go away.
It would be dismissed, but it's still there. They can see it.
Yeah.
And I was honest about all that stuff when I applied and I went through the process. And I feel there's a lot when I look at other guys I work with and the types of certifications and certificates and things like that they have. I have 10 times more than a lot of the guys I work with, and I think that may have had something to do with it. I felt I had to do a lot more. Just to be on the same playing field, because I had this dark side.
We overcompensate.
Totally. Yeah. And it was to overcompensate because of my past, right? And then when it would come up, and I would just be honest with them. I told them, they would ask me this question. I would say, yep, I did that, and I don't live that way anymore. At the time I was sober for 7-8 years, and it'd been a long time since I'd been arrested. I think when I was 7 or 8 years sober, it'd been over 10 years of being arrested. And it was basically, they're judging your moral character. They're looking at I don't think I've had a speeding ticket in sobriety, and it's huge. And when I was living that lifestyle, my views on law enforcement was why don't they just leave me alone? Why are they hassling me?
Right.
But when you look like a scumbag and you're doing scumbag things, it's their job.
What did we call you guys? We called you guys Team Dirtbag.
Yeah, right.
Team Dirtbag. Because I dated one of the friends or whatever, and we called you guys Team Dirtbag.
So when you're living that way of life, of course, it's their job to do that, right? And and being working with them now, it's just crazy. What I'm trusted with, my relationships with them.
Yeah.
There was I was in probably 6-7 months ago. The car came in. They were having a communication problem with the other radios and the PBS, and I had to get in the back. I had to open up the back to get to some of the wiring, and there was a sunglasses case, right? And no one else was around. I was the only person in the shop, and there was a sunglasses case, And I had to move it, and I was like, oh, something's in there. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of, what's in there?
100% heroin.
Curious what's in there. No, I opened it up, and there was a huge bag of meth. They just took off somebody that they were taking in to record it. And there was like, they were unable to make it. They had to come by the shop. And I think like I made like I was like.
You made a sound?
I made a sound.
Yeah.
And I had that, not like, hey, I want to get loaded, but I like immediately had to use the bathroom, you know? Like if you've ever like traveled in
yes, it's 100%. You don't want to do that with not near a bathroom.
And I was just like, and then I put it back in the thing and I just kept going about my business. Yeah. And then after that happened, I was like blown away. And I was like, I didn't like take any of it, right? Yeah. I wasn't like, I didn't even like put it to the side and go, I just might hold it for a rainy day.
Yeah,
like there wasn't even anything like that.
Right. You know? Touch it just to see, like, smell it, the purity.
No, nothing. And it was like that. After that, so I was saying it was easier to see, Alcoholics Anonymous and other people. That was one of the times where I was able to see it myself. Yeah. Where I was just like, that.
I did something different.
And it wasn't even like, I didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know? And so my relationship with law enforcement and like that mending of my views towards that has been huge, you know.
And you probably, I don't know if some of the guys know, but I'm assuming some of the guys know your history.
No,
they don't.
No, nobody I keep my like anonymity at work, so I'm just a straight shooter.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But some of the guys must know because they did your background check, right?
Yeah, but the department is so big.
Okay. They were up higher. They were more like, okay.
Yeah.
So you keep your anonymity there.
Yeah, and if it ever comes up, if I need to do something like it's like I said, it's just I'm just honest about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been sober long enough that I have a track record of on paper you can look and be like, this guy doesn't live like that anymore.
Right.
You know.
Right. And that's the we create this evidence that we've changed, evidence that we don't live that way, evidence that things work out okay if we put in the work.
Yeah.
You know, I like to call it evidence because I think a lot of the time we're looking for like, we investigate things like whether like as a case, like, is it true? Will it be like, is everything going to be okay or whatever when we hit another roadblock? And I have to look back at the evidence. The evidence says, you know, because I want proof of everything. Yeah. And the evidence says that everything's going to, like, historically, when I do the work, the evidence shows that it works out okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's like when I like came to have a God I can believe in, that's been like huge. Where like there's been times where I've been like the fear of unknowing, right? Yeah. Or like I get in financial insecurity or getting into a certain job, trying to get in with law enforcement, right? Yeah. I just like trust that it's going to be okay. Yeah. I don't know I have to be okay with not knowing how that's going to look. Yeah. But I just I trust that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and know that it might not be how I want it.
Right. Right. And that is a form of okay. Like that might be better. That might, like, we don't know what the plan is.
Yeah.
How has, like, you have a very unique situation with Emily where you guys got loaded together.
Yeah.
And then were able to get sober separately and then get back together. And you've been able to, like, it's very uncommon for people who get loaded together to be able to stay together.
Yeah.
What in your marriage, and you've gone to couples counseling, what are some, like, how were you guys able to be different than the status quo?
That's a lot. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it. Is for one, like working on ourselves, right? Outside of us, like getting to know ourselves personally.
Right.
Seeking professional help for our relationship, because there'll be times where, and this works both ways, where one of us will say something and I can't hear it.
Yep.
And tell somebody I just paid money to can tell me.
Totally.
And I'm like, wow, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Totally.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, right, right. We have this joke about we've done a lot of therapy, we've done a lot of counseling, and our couples counselor's cash only takes $220. So we try we know that if we cannot communicate this problem that we're having right now, it's going to be $220 to so we try really hard. They're like, how serious, how misunderstood are we, at an impasse, because we know that we're going to walk in, pay $220. They're going to say, we're going to, so, but it is, it's a constant tool and it's important. And I think a lot of guys have beliefs about therapy that stop them from doing it.
Yeah. Well, and for me, as I went to a lot of like ADD stuff when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like not wanting anything to do with it. And it's like part of that, like I had to, even with couple stuff, I had to find someone who I could really feel like was like non-biased, right?
Yeah, right.
And that.
But you were willing to do that if this,
Yeah. Like, and I've learned that in sobriety, like it takes work to keep things together, you know?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. And there's like certain platforms, me and my wife couldn't be more different, you know?
Yeah.
And like learning how to like bridge that or communicate across that. And sometimes it's a struggle, you know?
Yeah.
There's some topics like we choose not to talk about just because it's like gets heated.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. That's like living with the disagreement and letting it be okay. Like that was something I had to learn because I want to like attack it till it's dead.
Yeah, I'm right.
And like just, I need you to see how I'm right about this. And like, there's some stuff where you just have to let it be.
Yeah.
And that's a really like moving forward, living in that like discomfort of disagreement and unresolved, like living in a marriage where there are things that are unresolved.
Right.
And being happy and continue, you know, like that's hard.
Oh, absolutely.
And depending on what it is, that can be really serious, you know, if it's with the kids or whatever, and like having to navigate that, and then all of our ego stuff, and, you know, and then you have 2 alcoholics.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's, do you guys have plans on whether or not you're going to tell your girls, or like, how do you discuss being sober?
You know, like eventually I'm sure it will. Just by like statistical data, one of our kids has probably got a pretty good chance of being an alcoholic, you know? But like my oldest, she's 8 now, and like she knows we don't drink. She doesn't know why.
Okay, yeah. But does she know like that you go to meetings?
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's asked, I just tell her, you know, we talk about God, talk about how to be a better parent, you know, how to like be a better friend, you know, a better husband.
Yeah.
I don't tell her it's like my life depends on it, you know? Like, you don't understand, I need to go.
Just that conversation. Like,
yeah.
And then my dad told me, my kids go, are you going to your meeting?
Yeah. That's my youngest will say that.
Yeah.
But like being in a sober house, like 95% of our friends are all in the program. Right. So it's kind of like the norm, I think.
Right. Yeah. It's just interesting, you know, I always curious, like, what are people's opinions or plans on like how to talk about the fact that like your parents go to meetings and don't drink. And like, I think the not drinking piece is probably the least of it. Yeah. Like, right. Cause it's just like, they don't do that. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But like the meetings and the other people and the different things that we do.
Yeah.
Seems like at some point they would have questions about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's going to be like probably one of those things like, hey, how did I tell your kids? Or how did you tell your kids? You know? Yeah. Because I don't know. Yeah. The way my experience was just going to be different than how I tell my kids.
Right.
So
Right. We're trying to do it better.
Yeah.
So what's big on the docket for you this year?
This year, I'm going to try to promote. And I mean, that just depends on somebody retires. You know, I'm going to try to promote. I don't know. Kids' birthday parties and house remodeling.
Right.
The exciting stuff now.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you are an amazing success story, and I'm super grateful that you came on here and shared it with me, and you told the truth. You know, you just told the truth, and I know that it'll help a lot of people, and I think it's really cool that, you know, what you talked about with listening to the tapes and not being able to see and judge the person. I hadn't thought about that, but I wonder if that helps people like podcast stuff too. You know,
it was
like
huge.
You know, just like not having that distraction.
Yeah.
And hearing the message. So that's really cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you having you here.
Yeah, thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Lion Rock Recovery. Lion Rock provides online substance abuse counseling where clients can get help from the privacy of their own home. They are accredited by the Joint Commission, and sessions are private, affordable, and user-friendly. Call their free helpline at 800-258-6550 or visit www.lionrockrecovery.com for more information.